guys, it's Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for finding me. If you could subscribe, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. We are headed rapidly towards 3,000 subscribers, which is totally crazy to me. It's a really exciting time to be doing this channel. If you want to drop us a comment, let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see, what kind of movies you'd like to watch, and all that fun stuff. That would be awesome. So, what are we here to talk about today? It's a DVD. It's Supercop 2, hell yes, also known as Project S. I have in my hands here the Dimension Films DVD that was released in the United States, and as you can see there, that is Michelle Yeoh, and yes, this is a sequel to Police Story 3 / Supercop, the Jackie Chan film, so there you go, that's the inside of that, and then you can flip this little insert over. You got the cover there, and you got the chapter listings there. So this film was released in 1993, and I have to give a shout out before I get into this video to PerryFan49, who sent me this movie. He had this movie and did a little video about his Jackie Chan kind of and other, like martial arts films DVD collection, and I commented like, I can't believe you Supercop 2. Like, this movie's really hard to find, and this version on eBay is through the roof expensive every time I've seen it, and it's really difficult to get your hands on in the US. And he was nice enough to send me this, and also sent me in that same package. I did a whole unboxing of that, so you can find that on the channel. But also sent me My Life in Action, the Jackie Chan book. And the reason that I'm showing this off is that I will be reading this. This is the next thing I have to read on my big pile of books that I'm reading, and so I'll be doing a review of this, and then I will also be reviewing Never Grow Up, the other Jackie Chan book, because I have both of those now, and I'll be doing videos on those. So something to look forward to if you're a Jackie Chan fan. So, as I said, this was released in 1993. It was directed by Stanley Tong, who also directed Supercop, and it also stars Yeoh Guang. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. That's a tricky one for me. I worked on it before making this video. Louis Fon is in this movie, Emil Chow, and Dick Y is in this film, and a lot of other people you'll recognize if you're a fan of these films. And actually, Uncle Bill from the Police Story movies is that he makes like a couple little appearances in this film. It's not really a cameo because he's in a couple scenes, but he's in it, and it's really fun to see him in it. So this movie's awesome. That's the first thing I'll tell you. I really, really, really enjoyed it. It's less like a Jackie Chan film. What it really makes me think of is like the absolute best Girls with Guns movies, because it has that quality of combining like the John Woo style shootouts with like legit scenes of martial arts fighting and stuff like that. And so kind of some of those heroic bloodshed films that have like legit martial arts scenes in them, but also really those Girls with Guns movies. And it doesn't have the kind of comedic tone that Jackie Chan films has. This is a straight, like, hard thriller with a lot of great shootouts in it, a lot of great fight scenes in it. So, to give you a little bit about the story, Michelle Yeoh is playing the same character she plays in Police Story. So she's an officer in mainland China. I believe she's in Beijing. And the movie starts with her rescuing someone from kind of like a terrorist situation. She's given this award. And she has a boyfriend, a guy she's in love with, and their plan is to get married. And he's played by the Yeoh Guang character, and he's having a really hard time in life of like advancing and trying to find a career and a place for himself, and he feels like there's not a lot of opportunity in China, and he feels like there's more in life for him, and so he leaves to Hong Kong with a buddy of his from the army. So he was in the Chinese army in Vietnam. So I actually did some research about this, and because the North Vietnamese were communists and China was communist, the Chinese army was fighting with the Vietnamese first in the Indo-Chinese War, which was when they fought the French, up until 1968 when they were fighting the Americans as well. The Chinese kind of pulled out in 1968 because they could not reach an agreement with the North Vietnamese, so something like a political agreement or whatever you want to call it. And then they were also preparing to have kind of a bit of a skirmish with the Soviets, so they were pulling troops out to go to that too. But there were these Chinese troops were in Vietnam, and as we know from everything we know as Americans and Westerners about the Vietnam War, that was not a pleasant place to be. And a lot of horrible stuff happened there, especially to the North Vietnamese, and then presumably the Chinese who were fighting with them, kind of at the hands of what the U.S. government was doing with the napalm and the destroying the villages and burning them down and stuff like that. And so and obviously, I'm not trying to disparage the troops who were in Vietnam. It's very important to point that out. Like, these were like government policies, CIA policies. These were not like the individual people who were conscripted into this war who were just kind of like victims of their circumstance and whatever, right? But this movie has this really interesting thing of like these characters who lived through this really horrible conflict in this really tumultuous period in history, and they devoted themselves to not only to China but also to the communist cause. And they come home and there's nothing for them, but they know how to fight and they're trained. And it's this almost this thing of like these, they grow up and they live and they in such harsh conditions, and they never get out of that, and they never achieve anything. They're never given what is promised to them. And so they're like, fuck it and fuck you, we're going to take it. And so they go to Hong Kong, and this guy goes to Hong Kong, breaks up with Michelle Yeoh. She's like, he tells her, come to Hong Kong with me. She's like, I'm not going to leave like my job and I've devoted my whole life to China and everything like that. And so he leaves, and it's really heartbreaking for both of them, I think. And he ends up in Hong Kong, and he puts together a squad of his former soldiers, and they become this like, they're military and they have military weapons and like they know what they're doing, and they become this really good like robbery squad, right? And so there's this scene where it's kind of like a MacGuffin device, basically. They rob this thing, and the Hong Kong cops need it back. And so they ask Michelle Yeoh to come and advise. Like, the Chinese military, Chinese gangs and stuff like that. Come and be our advisor and help us understand who these people are, where they're coming from, and how we can catch them. And so she teams up with 2 cops in Hong Kong, and they go after these guys. And that's basically the plot of this movie. And then obviously her personal life comes back into it and complicates it. And it does a really good job, I think, of showing her position as a woman, right, in a field dominated by men, and how tenuous her position is and how hard it was for her to get there, and how she doesn't want to sacrifice that, but also she's in love with this guy and he's in love with her, and they're coming from different sides. And she has this situation of like, there's these Chinese soldiers. Who is she loyal to? Is she loyal to the Chinese even though they're doing bad things, or is she loyal to the law? And does she respect the law of Hong Kong and try to, go after these guys who are kind of very similar to her, right? And it's the moral conflicts that her character has are really, really interesting. But like I said, there are badass action scenes and shootouts in this film. The plot, if you're familiar with the film Long Arm of the Law, obviously you'll see a lot of overlap with the plot there of those Chinese military guys who come to Hong Kong for like a jewelry store heist and stuff like that. And it has those kind of, 80s style shootouts. It kind of reminds me of like that movie Final Justice, if you've seen that, or like those other movies where you're having shootouts like in the street kind of stuff. And it's really high quality filmmaking in terms of like the fight scenes, the shootouts and stuff like that, and the moral dilemmas of the characters. I thought was really well handled. Jackie Chan is in this movie. He's in one scene with Eric Tsang, and that scene totally derails the movie for me. Like, I get why it's there, but it's like absurd comedy where Jackie Chan and Eric Tsang are both like cross-dressing, and he's a cop and Jackie's a cop, and like Eric Tsang is like an undercover jewelry thief or something. It's like it totally comes out of nowhere. It doesn't really relate to the movie, and you're like, well, I get it, but it's also kind of annoying, and I don't really want it there. The other thing I'll say about this movie is that I feel like Dimension Films may have added music onto this film, because like I said, it came out in 1993, and during some of the fight and action scenes, there's this kind of like techno music that makes me think of like The Matrix or like 90s James Bond, and like I don't think that music was a thing in 1993. I might be wrong, but I feel like this is a later release, like after Jackie Chan became really successful and after they had success with the US releases of Supercop and First Strike and stuff like that. I think they may have put this out after that, and they added this music on that is not the original music. I do have a DVD copy of Project S, which I just got from Charles in that huge unboxing I did, if you saw that, which is, like I said, a different title for this film. So I'm going to throw that on and compare it to this, and then maybe I'll come back and do a different video where I talk about the differences between the versions, if there are any. But it just struck me that in 1993, that like that kind of techno music was not like a thing that people were using in movies, but I might be totally wrong about that. But in terms of the plot elements and like the fighting and the amazing locations, I can't emphasize that enough. If you watch the channel, I love location photography. There's locations in mainland China. I don't know if they shot in Beijing or what, or maybe it's Macau and they're faking it from mainland China. I honestly don't know. I don't know enough to know. But the scenes with the Michelle Yeoh character in China, amazing locations, and it looks nothing like Hong Kong. And it's really, really cool to see that difference. And then when they come to Hong Kong, the way that Hong Kong is shot in this movie is really, really cool. It feels a lot like day-to-day local Hong Kong. It doesn't feel like a tourist movie in the sense that you would watch you know, some of these films like New Police Story, and it's like all the skyscrapers and it's all these locations in the middle of, like, you can tell they're trying to sell it to an international audience and make Hong Kong look exotic and stuff like that. Like in this film, it's really a local's view of Hong Kong. It's really like a street level kind of view, and it's really, really cool to see the locations they choose and how they use them. And there was one location that I recognized from Final Justice. If you've seen that film with Danny Lee and Stephen Chow, and Xing Fui On is in that film. It's a really good movie. I did a video about that a while ago. So you can check that out on the channel if you're interested. But so the movie is Supercop 2, and like I said, I really enjoyed it. The ending kind of reminded me of Hard Boiled. It's like one location and everyone's kind of stuck in there, and there's lots of gunfights and betrayals and character development and stuff, like over the course of like almost half an hour in this single. It's like a series of interconnected locations. Kind of reminded me of the hospital stuff in Hard Boiled. So yeah, so my name is Will. This is Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Those are my thoughts on Supercop 2, which is also known as Project S. I got to give a huge shout out again to PerryFan49 for sending this my way. I really immensely enjoyed this film, and I'm so happy to have seen it and to have this DVD. I guess we'll see you next time.